As Quentin said, when I threw the idea to him, he said, they both had O at the end of their names.
Yes,
I said,
yes.
Mine too. And he said, black and brown played together. One of the many things I love about Quentin is that I don't have to hide my political agenda because it's the same as his.
Yeah, right.
So he was excited for the same reason I was, that this was the coolest idea ever. So I called Nick, I said, let's do this. Now, Nick then provided us with the vast array of the great Dynamite library. And Quentin plunged in. And he really loved Matt Wagner's work on Zorro, which who doesn't?
Yeah.
He's an extraordinary writer, criminal, an amazing body of work.
No, I think if they were to literally just take Matt's books the way they are just right now, and just did it as a TV series, it would be the best Zorro TV series ever made.
Oh, it's awesome.
Anybody?
Quentin, Reggie, shall I take it to the rights holders? You guys want to produce it?
Things get checked. So Quentin did something. I actually, it was very. He said, "Hey, let's work with this guy. This guy's a great writer." I said, "I agree." And one of the great pleasures was the day that Matt flew into Los Angeles, and we all met at Quentin's house, and the brainstorming began. And I have to say, watching these two fantastic minds, both steeped in history, both well-known and obscure, and fantastic storytellers, and watching them weave their love of Django and Zorro into an exquisite, well, you'll just see it for yourself. The work, I knew that this was going to be not just historical, because Quentin was actually extending the life of one of his brilliant creations, but it was going to be a collaboration for the ages. So I'm as excited as you are as I read the scripts and know that this is going to be a fantastic book.
Yeah, and I have to say, that first meeting that Reggie's talking about there, when I flew down to get together with Quentin, you know, I was a little curious as to how this was going to work out. You know, I'm kind of a singular vision creator, and so is Quentin, and didn't know how that would mesh. You know, Quentin might be an asshole. I might be an asshole. You don't know.
Yeah.
And it turned out, I mean, it just felt like we kind of known each other for years.
Oh no, absolutely.
We're about the same
Yeah.
age, we got the same
Yeah.
points of reference, we love the same stuff, and it was just kind of like, boom, let's roll.
Well, you know, it's actually one of the things that was actually really interesting about it was, you know, I'm looking at. Well, I mean, first I was like, well, we'll take care of Django when we get to it. This has got to work as a Zorro book.
Yeah.
You know, as the next extension of the Zorro book, and you're going to be those are your Bibles. All right, so I'm looking to him as the Zorro expert. However, I have seen a lot of the different Zorro or Zorro-ish type of movies and serials over the course of the years. And then, and just when I heard about the idea of Zorro Django, I started rewatching some of them and trying to brainstorm. So I was like, well, hey, what do you think about this? And maybe we could attack the story this way. But you know, it's like, you know, you're gonna know what's best as far as Zorro is concerned. But let me show you these ideas and whatever. And then literally, it was just kind of one foot in front of the other.
Right.
Oh, that's a great idea. Let's do this. Let's do that. But we watched about like 3 hours of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, Quentin,
Go ahead.
when you start working with people, you like to screen movies for them.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, we're gonna watch movies all weekend. Okay, all right, great. And so we watched a bunch of great movies and kicked around a bunch of great ideas, and everything just started to flow. Just ideas were pop. I said to you, there was a lot of, yes, I love that, flying back and forth across the table.
And the thing with Django is, you know, if I don't know if I'll ever do a movie sequel to it, but if I did, it would kind of, you know, it would have to be connected to something to the first movie in kind of an epic kind of way. But I always did love the idea of there being, and me and Reggie talked about it, there being like Django paperbacks. You know, just like the further adventures of
Like Max Brand.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And, or you know, Splinter in a Mind's Eye or something. It's just their own little adventure. But when we actually went to talk to people about doing them, I could never just let go. I couldn't just let go and let some guy do it, and you know, I'd read their synopsis and I go, oh, you're effing up the mythology. That's not what Django will do, and Schultz actually really doesn't feel that way. So I did want to do something like that, but I knew I just couldn't quite let it go. And this was the perfect opportunity to me. And also I was so happy with the way the Django Unchained comic book came out that I was like, no, I think this is the way to follow the story.
Yeah, and again, as you can tell, I mean, when Quentin and I first started hanging out 15 or so years ago, you know, before whatever well, I guess you were prepping for Inglorious, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that was
yeah.
still in the works. We watched Zorro shorts before the main features, so.
Free Glory?
Yeah.
And one of
Well, yeah, I have like all, 13 chapters. So when I would show a movie, I would try to get through a new serial. So I would just, every time I show a film, I show the next chapter of the serial.
Exactly. And one of the things, I mean, after Django, Quentin and I had, spent basically every day together for 2 years, right? So after the movie was over, it was like, okay, let's go back to our lives.
Yeah, right.
And then he called and said, hey man, a friend of mine just gave me his comic collection. So we went over and we just had all these great long walks and we just read comics for an afternoon.
Right, yeah, exactly.
But it was exquisite, so it just got us back in the comic book head.
Yeah, well, in fact, the first time I was there, Quentin it was a year ago, just post San Diego. Quentin had just been to San Diego, and you had bought up stacks and stacks of the Marvel black and white mags from the 70s.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
like, Dracula Lives, Tales of the Zombie, Savage Sword of Conan, Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. And that's my era too. And you have to remember, those of you a little too young, those magazines were put out at the time to escape the comics code. And they weren't racked with regular comics. They were always on the upper magazine racks in the magazine stores. And so as a 13-year-old, they felt really dangerous and illicit.
Yeah.
You'd go over and you'd like take one and see if anybody was watching. And so we geeked out over those for
Just
an hour probably.
Well, as we got together, I had just completely reconnected with my love of 70s era comics and started following some characters that I didn't read when I was younger, but I fell in love with Morbius the Living Vampire. Read everything, and I fell in love with Tigra the Werewolf.
Tigra, yeah.
Love Tigra the Werewolf. All right, I'm plowing through West Coast Avengers right now to finish her arc. So I was all involved with all of that, and it was just the perfect time to go over and brainstorm the story.
Yeah, yeah.
So for my second question,
Are we that far ahead
This was
already?
so fast.